Being an effective communicator is maybe the most important skill today because so many people are building these massive personal brands, making millions of dollars, having a huge impact, sending a message just from their phones, just from speaking to their phones. You have a phone, I have a phone, and some people are making millions of dollars and having a huge impact doing this. And just with the thing that is in our pocket. So this is the one time in history that you have an opportunity to completely change your life without even having to leave your apartment. So what makes the difference between an effective communicator and a yapper? Because I'm sure you know some yappers who just ramble on and you're like, oh, just get to the point, right? Well, I think there's three things. Number one is being honest. The reason some people, we see them as yappers is because you can tell that they're lying. Like there's certain people that when they talk, that you can just kind of tell that it seems like they're lying, just based on like their body language and what they're saying, and like it seems like they're exaggerating things. And if you catch them in a lie, you're like you distrust them now. So it's like if you can at least try not to lie, then you'll start to build trust with your audience, and that's a big part of being an effective communicator. Is like building trust with the person you're speaking to, because if they trust you, then they'll actually listen to what you have to say. And the other thing is, you can trust yourself if you're not lying. Like so many people, if I'm trying to calculate what I think you would want me to say, then I have to think a lot. I have to spend a lot of energy doing that. But if I just am like, all right, I'm just going to be as honest as I can be for my personal story, then it becomes a lot easier. It's a lot simpler. It's like just me and the truth. This is the only thing I have to convey. I don't have to calculate what I think is best for what you want me to say. Like if you ask me my favorite color, I could just be like, oh, right now it's navy green. That's like color I like to wear sometimes, so that's my favorite color. Simple, right? But if you asked me my favorite color and I was trying to guess what your favorite color was, that'd be a lot harder, right? So I'd be like, oh, you're wearing a red shirt, but you're a Giants fan, so I know that you maybe you like the color blue, but you are wearing the red shirt, so maybe it's somewhere between red and blue. Maybe I'll go orange. Like clearly this would take a lot of time and energy for me to guess your favorite color, right? Whereas if you're just being honest, it takes a lot less energy, and people can sense that, and I think they can sense that in your body language, how nervous you feel, and like just the way you're communicating. People can sense whether or not you're telling the truth, and it's not going to be 100% accurate, but generally speaking, like people can get a pretty good idea of if you're being honest. So step number one, try to be as honest as possible, or at least don't lie. Sometimes it's hard to be completely honest and really vulnerable and like talk about super personal things, but if you at least try and avoid lying, or at least minimizing it, everyone lies to a certain extent, minimizing it to the extent that you can, you will be much more of an effective communicator. The second thing that distinguishes effective communicators from yappers is having a point, because you can be honest but still not really be an effective communicator if what you're saying doesn't have a point. I'm sure you've heard someone ramble on and you're like, dude, just get to the point, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I started a speech with like, yeah, today I brushed my teeth and then I was gonna do laundry, but I had to make a video. See, this is not effective because even though it is honest, it's honest. What I'm saying is true. It's not effective because there's no point to it, right? So whenever I make a video, I'm like, there's like one specific point I'm trying to get across. In this video, it's like how to be an effective communicator and not yap. And there's another framework you can use that'll kind of give you some boundaries so you don't ramble on. And this is the 3-2-1 framework. I learned this from Ask Vin. That's his username, Ask Vin. Now, what this is it gives you certain boundaries. So it's 3 steps, 2 types, or 1 thing. So if someone asks you a question, you can just narrow it down to one of these things. I'll give you an example. So if you ask me like, how do you be a better public speaker? I would say, the one thing about public speaking is it really takes practice, because you have to get comfortable going in front of people and your body has to be relaxed doing that in order for you to come across as an effective speaker. So the one thing I would say is just get as much practice as you can. So see, that was a good way to answer the question because I didn't ramble on and on. There's like 50 things I could tell you about public speaking, but I just picked one thing because I was like, okay, this is probably the most value-add thing you can do is just practice. So if you have this framework, 3 steps, 2 types, 1 thing, then it just gives you those boundaries to be able to answer the question. So similarly, you could be like, oh, there's 3 steps to being an effective public speaker. There's 2 types of public speakers. I found that the 3 steps and 1 thing are more effective than the 2 types, but you can use that framework to kind of simplify your message and stop rambling. Okay, now the third thing you want to do is to be credible, because who is saying the message is more important than the actual message itself. I'll give you an example. So if LeBron James was teaching you how to play basketball and I was teaching you how to play basketball, who would you listen to? Obviously LeBron, right? Even if we're saying the same message, the same exact things. If I was like, yeah, make sure you're practicing dribbling, shooting, defense. And LeBron said the same thing. Make sure you practice dribbling, shooting, defense. Obviously, you're going to listen to LeBron. So who is saying the message is more important than the message itself. So how do you build credibility? Well, first of all, you speak about the things that you've already done. So like when I talk about making videos, I can talk about like public speaking because I've done stand-up comedy before. I talk about getting over the fear of posting because I post consistently. I talk about not chasing views because I've learned this message from making comedy skits. Like I've actually put myself out there, so I feel comfortable talking about these things and helping people with this because I've been there before. So you can just talk about the things you've done before, and if you haven't done that many things, then start to do things and start to talk about them. So you want to build your credibility not by talking about other people too much, but by talking about the things that you've actually done. And if you focus on those three things, you try to be honest, you have a point in what you're saying, and you do your best to build credibility, your communication skills will 10x, and that can completely change your life in terms of job opportunities, dating opportunities, making new friends, everything. Everything changes. Everything is based on your ability to communicate, right? So it can completely change your life. So it's worth putting in the effort. And of course, it's not going to be easy at first. It'll take some time. But even though it won't be easy, it will be worth it. Life's not easy, but it's worth it. Take care.